I've just returned from a city council meeting regarding a data center. And I've got to say, it's I'm happy, and I'm also a bit depressed because this is infinitely more complicated, I think, than all of us anticipated. So anyway, I'm just going to kind of give you a couple thoughts on it that I have. I'm not super familiar with how long and all the nooks and crannies of this particular proposal, but here are the nuts and bolts of it. There is a Florida company called QLever that has applied to build a data center. The residents are not happy about this. And one of the residents asked in the meeting, who signed off on this? Who gave them this permit? How did this happen? Excellent question, right? And the answer is that no one signed a permit. There's no permit yet. It's legal to build a data center in Inver Grove Heights. And it became legal in 2017, 9 years ago. In 2017, a proposal for zoning was put before the Inver Grove Heights City Council for approval, and asking if they would approve data centers. And they said yes. Now, I don't know who was on the council, and I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to pick apart their decision back then, because you know what, spilled milk doesn't matter. But we haven't had data centers for a terribly long time, and I'm extremely passionate about preserving our environment and global warming and preventing it. But the thing about these data centers is, now that data centers have been in use for a while, right? In 2017, when the city council is saying yes to data centers, we didn't have the amount of data on the data centers that we do now, and the environmental impacts and the secondary impacts and the unintentional consequences and whatever, right? And the health effects that have borne out to be very, very negative for, and the immediate community is heavily impacted. They're impacted in their health, their well-being, and also financially in their resale values, and things of that sort. Okay. But in 2017, they said it's okay to build a data center. No one revisited it. So, and if you've ever been involved in like building a new house or any kind of a construction program, what this man was his frustration that he was trying to articulate, I understood what he meant. Like, how did this all of a sudden happen? Well, it doesn't all of a sudden happen. There's a lot of steps and a lot of stages before, you're actually breaking ground on any kind of development. The good news is that the city council has decided to hold a moratorium on the decision about the data center. Well, that's good. But the reason that, and I'm glad they did it, but I know it was very scary for them to do this, because this QLever company has written a letter threatening that if the city of Inver Grove Heights doesn't approve their build for this data center, that they're going to sue for damages the city of Inver Grove Heights for $150 million. $150 million worth of damages. Needless to say, the city of Inver Grove does not have an extra $150 million sitting around. So the QLever has threatened to sue for $150 million. Inver Grove Heights, the city does not have $150 million. Although the city does have insurance against lawsuits like this. Apparently there's an insurance pool that the city belongs to. It's administered on the state level, and it's like backup insurance for cities that they can purchase. And so they have a policy of $1 million. So this company is basically saying, if you don't let us put this data center in, we're going to sue you for $150 million. So if you're one of the 5 council members, boy, that's no pressure, and so right. But the problem is and QLever isn't necessarily wrong legally, and this is the inconvenient part, because it's legal. In 2017, the city council said you could do it. They had their research done. Oh, where are all the places where data centers are allowed? Oh, this place is allowed. Oh, look, they just so happen to have a building that is all decrepit and they just tore down. It'd be a great spot for what we want to do. Oh, is it legal? Yep, sure is. They said it's fine to build data centers. Okay, well, let's start drawing up the plans, Mike. Okay, let's start doing the extra stuff and getting the paperwork filed. And then it hits the city council's desk like, okay. So, but one of the things that the environmentalists and a lot of the speakers and the attorney for the city, or was he for the, I think he was, or for the city or some, anyway, he was advising them. I don't want to put a lawyer in a legal corner, and anyway, you get it. But the thing that he said was that stuck to me, and I'm not quoting, but roughly the point he made was, if this wasn't an allowed, permitted use, if data centers hadn't been zoned okay, then they obviously couldn't just force place a data center. So, if you live in a municipality, you should probably ask your municipality or city, are data centers legal? Are we zoned? Do they permit, our zoning laws, do they permit data centers? And if they do, and you don't want data centers, amend it now. You can amend the zoning now. You can add additional requirements. You can put parameters on it now. But right at this point, Inver Grove, I mean, the train's already on the tracks, and they're going to do a moratorium. And the moratorium basically will do an assessment of the environmental impact, and it's almost, I mean, it's not exactly, but I'm going to draw a parallel. It's not a great legal parallel, but similar. If you've ever written a purchase agreement on a house and you put in a contingency, it's kind of like a contingency. Basically, okay, we're not saying the data center can't be built, but we're going to get this environmental impact report done. And if this environmental impact report done tells us that your proposed property, your data center, is going to be bad for our environment, then we're going to decline your permit. But that doesn't mean that Q-Lever won't still sue. And it also doesn't mean that the city will lose the lawsuit. The lawsuit, as was explained in the meeting today, would go to a district attorney or a district judge, and then they would make the decision. But I urge you to find out, call your city council members and ask them if zoning permits for data centers in your area, and start getting on them to get it excluded, removed, or at least modified to a certain extent. Because it's not, in the day of internet and all this research and stuff, it's not hard for them to find out where the loopholes are. They're paying people $300 an hour to find loopholes. You can find a lot of loopholes. You pay me $300 an hour. So look at what you guys already have on your books. The whole thing actually reminded me of the season finale of the show Little House on the Prairie. Hey, Tiffany, that was a weird neurodivergent leap. I know. It'll tie in, though. Little House on the Prairie, if you're not familiar with the television show or the series of books, was filmed not filmed in, but it was based in southern Minnesota in a town called Walnut Grove. Walnut Grove is a real town. The television show portrayed a fictional version of a town called Walnut Grove. If you go to the real Walnut Grove, it does not look anything like the show. So, because they didn't film the show here. But anyway. But at the very end of the show, and of course they've got to wrap this very important television series, and they've got to come up with a big finish and the whole bit. What's interesting, if you go back and watch the season finale of the show finale, not the season, the show, what happens to the town of Walnut Grove is there is a developer that comes in, and through a series of legal maneuvers, he basically buys up the town of Walnut Grove. And the residents realize, they've been kind of hoodwinked and outmaneuvered, and they don't really have a way to, technically fight back. And so they're offered, some compensation to leave and to just surrender the property and to move on. And, they're basically just being displaced, right? And, of course, it's a television show, right? This didn't really happen. It's not the end of the real book. But they go around to each one of the iconic buildings like Doc Baker's and and of course the Olson's Mercantile and the Little House and And individually, each one of the families using TNT destroys their own property that they built. One by one. And when it's all done, the last building's ready to go, which is the church and the schoolhouse and the city council meeting and where everything happened, right? The developer's there. He rides up. He's mad. Everything's wrecked. They wrecked it all. They ignite the last munition, and but waiting off in the wings is a wagon, and there's a couple of men sitting there, and they don't identify who they are until a little bit later on. And the developers, what are you doing? You're gonna pay for this, and and they basically said, hey, we violate, we honored the letter of the law, just not the spirit of the law. Here's the land. We didn't say, you get the buildings too, kind of a deal, right? And the wagon of the unidentified men sitting over there are representatives from other cities that are nearby, because they are worried about this takeover of East Coast money coming in and purchasing their towns the way that it's just happened with Walnut Grove. And so the developer, he's all mad and whatever, and it curses and the whole bit. And the other guys are like, hey, just so you know, Mr. Developer, if you do this to our towns, we're going to do the exact same thing. You can have the land, but we're not going to give you the buildings. So I'm sharing this, and I'm trying to break this little, situation down in terms of we need to be, I suggest, vigilant in making sure that any loopholes that may exist currently in your local zoning laws, you change those now. Because, like I was saying a moment ago, the city of Invergrove Heights is in a pickle. If the district court judge sides with the Q-lever people, I don't know. I don't know what happens when a city owes $150 million. Because cities are not allowed to run deficits. States aren't allowed to run deficits. The only people that are allowed to run deficits are the president. Presidents and, the national debt. We can run a deficit, but, states and that aren't allowed to. The rest of us actually have to live on what we have. So if you're in a town, you're sitting there going, God, you know what? I haven't talked to my city council person in a while. I should give them a call this afternoon. Just ask them, hey, out of curiosity, are data centers legal by our zoning? And if so, maybe you guys should think about doing the old switcheroo on that one, so we don't have to get all dramatic by the end of Little House on the Prairie. Also, by the way, too, double down on the fact, not advocating that anybody do anything, like that. No destruction of property. Remember, I went to school to be a cop, okay? Property crimes are crimes. But, yeah. I don't know. It's getting interesting. But they've realized the weakest link is local. And they're going to the city and they're going to the county levels to get what they want. And it's a lot easier to spend. They could spend a lot less money to influence outcomes, in smaller races. So, but once they start building, it's built. And that was another point that a lot of people brought up in the meeting too. It was brought up by a few citizens, but it's in the budget for these large companies to just pay the fines for environmental, red, flags that they get. Like if they get flagged for $1 million fine for violating environmental laws, they've got a budget for that. They go, oh, okay, $1 million out of the lawsuit account. Okay, there you go. It's no sweat to them. It's nothing to them. They budget for it. They budget for getting a certain amount of fines because they don't intend to honor the spirit of the law either. Kind of like the people in Walnut Grove. All right. I'll close on this last thing. I'll just remind everybody one last time. Remember, human beings are the only species on the planet that would knowingly destroy its own habitat. Huh. Are we really that dumb? We'll see, because the environment should not be a political issue at all. We live on the earth. The earth doesn't live on us. I think we can at least agree on that. And I think the flat earthers can get on board with that one too. The earth does not live on us. As egocentric as we are, it actually does. Okay.